Public policy discussion. We are excited to have everyone here. I am Kim Downs, Hiawatha City Manager. On behalf of the Hiawatha Economic Development Corporation, HEDCO, we'd like to thank all of you for joining us today. HEDCO is pleased to join MEDCO once again, the Marion Chamber of Commerce, along with Cedar Rapids Metro Economic Alliance, to host our second Business Leader Public Policy discussion. We are thrilled with our attendance. We have over 100 registered for this event, so lots of good discussion coming our way. We think this platform has been an effective way to advocate to our legislators and to inform our members and our investors of current issues. So together we can join our advocacy efforts. Your stories and your contacts with elected officials are what makes the biggest influence on our current and future policies. Today, we want to focus on tackling some of our most pressing workforce issues. It's our goal to offer solutions rather than sharing only problems to our elected officials, and that's what today's panel discussion will focus on. And before we get started, I do want to acknowledge some of our state elected leaders who I've seen pop up here. I believe we have a handful, and right now I know I see Liz Mathis, Senator Mathis, and Representative Tracy Aller as well, and Representative Charlie Clintock. So welcome, thank you so much for being here. Without you guys, without all of you and the wonderful people that we have in our community, we certainly help Iowa go in the right direction. So thank you for all that you do. And we want to thank you for joining, all of you for joining us today to listen to our challenges and our solutions. For our attendees, if you have any questions, please put them in the chat section and we'll do our best to get to them during the hour or follow up with you after. So now I'm going to turn it over to Jill Ackerman.
Thanks, Kim. I'm Jill Ackerman, president of the Marion Chamber of Commerce, and I have the honor of introducing today's panel. Unfortunately, Jim Bowie with Involta is not able to join us. I don't think he's jumped on here. I think he got called away to another meeting. But we do have Sue Cedrell, who is VP of Human Resources at Involta, where she is the champion for developing and enhancing Involta's culture. Her efforts have been integral to Involta's local and national recognition as a leading cloud and IT services company. Sue continues to expand and nurture Involta's world-class team through talent acquisition, recognition, and development, leveraging her deep experience with color training and personality inventory. She holds a Bachelor of Arts degree in economics from the University of Iowa. Next, we have Erin Marie Toms, who is the Vice President for People and Culture at Raining Rose in Cedar Rapids, where she focuses on people operations, organizational development, and community partnerships. Her current work objectives consist of aligning HR strategy with strategic business needs, fostering high employment engagement, and successfully leading team members through change and turbulence. I've had plenty of that this year. Next is Erin Horn, who is the Executive Director at the New Bohemian Innovation Collaborative, or NewBoCo, as most of us know it, the parent nonprofit of the Iowa Startup Accelerator and Delta V Code School. Erin earned his degrees in Management Information Systems and Entrepreneurial Studies at Iowa State University. Erin spent 2.5 years as Director of IT for the Iowa Interstate Railroad before moving from NewBoCo's board chair to full-time Chief Operating Officer in 2017, and then Executive Director in 2020. Welcome, Erin. Kim Betchika is the Vice President of Continuing Education and Training Services at Kirkwood Community College. She has 35 years of experience working in workforce and economic development within the Iowa Community College system. Kim's regional leadership has supported Kirkwood's development of strong relationships with businesses, organizations, and community leaders at both a local, state, and national scale. She holds a doctorate degree from Iowa State University in the Department of Educational Leadership and Policy Studies. Thank you to our panelists for sharing your perspective today and for helping us advocate important issues. At this time, I'm going to hand things over to Doug Newman, who is going to help lead today's discussion.
Jill, thank you. And thanks to everybody for joining us today. Thanks to this great panel for being part of the discussion. and for a really strong participation today. This should be a great program. Workforce means so many things. It's such a broad topic and so important to the work that all community developers and economic developers do today. Certainly the focus of state officials, city officials. We're going to really focus much of today's conversation to try to be even narrower than that. A couple of specific things about workforce, really focusing on skilled worker shortage and childcare issues, both of which are front and center in the legislature this session and should generate some great conversation. I do want to start with the group that we have on the panel today. And we've had a number of very successful programs that sort of started with this question. So just a little bit off topic for just the very first question, because we're coming off of such an extraordinary year. It's been really helpful, I think, to continually ask, how are you recovering? How's business? What challenges from the pandemic, from the derecho, from all of the events of 2020, are you still in the thick of? How are your organizations addressing that? And keep in mind, as you answer these questions, that we do have legislators on the call. So if there are roles that the state government can play in helping address some of those challenges, please mention that. And we'll do a quick round through everybody on that. And then let's jump into some of the more specific childcare and skilled worker shortage issues on that. So I'm going to take you in the order that I see you on my screen. Aaron, do you want to tackle that first? Challenges you're still facing, how you're doing?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Uncertainty, I think, is a big challenge. Our nonprofit runs a co-working space in addition to having 26 employees, and we have a beautiful building in Nubo that feels very empty right now. And some people can come in still if they prefer to come into the office, and they can do that safely. But since we're not sure what post-pandemic needs are going to look like, we're making changes and doing things like signing shorter contracts, 1 to 3 years instead of 5 years and things like that, because we just don't know. We've taken our K through 12 and Delta V Code School classes virtual, and we won't go back to exclusively in-person classes at Delta V for sure, at least. We're always going to have that online option available. It's really certainly helped us reach a lot more of the state, with some of those education offerings that we have. And as far as anything the state can do to further help, obviously state funding for revenue gaps for entrepreneurs is huge in our world for sure, as well as just overall talent recruitment efforts. So we have to keep making Iowa an appealing and welcoming place to move to, as places like San Francisco see a tech talent exodus. Now that companies are supporting fully remote work, we want them to come here.
Thanks, Aaron. Kim Betchika, you're next on my screen. You want to talk a little bit about challenges and just how you're doing at the college?
Sure, Doug. Thanks. Yeah. So, right now, higher education is operating in both worlds. We're keeping face-to-face going for those students that not only want that, but require it due to equity and access issues, in addition to our distance learning and online platforms, which we certainly wrapped up, and probably a blessing for higher ed, right? Because it really accelerated our depth that we have now in our online programs. An additional challenge for us at the institution also was that often our advising, our introductions to the campus are all done in groups. And with the pandemic, that wasn't possible. So we've gone to much more one-on-one interactions with our students, and we're seeing some great outcomes as a result of that. And we don't think that will shift back. We know that that's extremely important, and we're seeing wins from that type of one-on-one attention. Our employers have done a great job pivoting to virtual. The training and education we're doing with the employers in the region has increased. So there's something to the access of just-in-time training and development through online in a customized way that it can be provided. And also silver lining with the CARES Act funds that has been able to help us provide direct assistance to our students. And it's needed now more than ever. Very sobering what we're seeing from student need, which I'm sure employers are seeing that from an employee standpoint as well. So many things will be here to stay, including processes that have become much more efficient for us.
Thanks, Kim. And now our two for-profit private sector companies, Anne Marie, Reigning Rose, challenges, how you're doing, how you're coming through all of this.
Yeah, Reigning Rose is a personal body care company. And so we were able to pivot right in the beginning of the pandemic and actually switch a lot of our operations to hand sanitizer, which was a great morale booster because we have to be on site to do our work, which I can see a lot of these great backgrounds. And here I'm the only one I can see that's wearing a mask because I'm at work. And so oftentimes we think about our own place in the world and how comfortable it might be that we got to stay home, be safe, wash our hands as many times as we wanted to. And yet there's a large amount of people, especially in our local community, that needed to go to work. And so the safety and health of those employees was and still is our absolute main priority, concern, and challenge, right? Thankfully, we've had a lot of proactivity that has allowed for us to remain a healthy and safe workplace, despite the lack of ability to social distance with our work. But one of the biggest challenges that we've faced is the disappearance of workers. Initially, when the pandemic hit, there were some that just didn't feel safe being at work, and they disappeared. And then there were ones that couldn't work due to pre-existing conditions and their physicians wanting to make sure they didn't go to work in order to keep them safe. There were many that chose not to work because it actually would make more money on unemployment than they would coming to the workplace every day. And that was a huge, huge barrier for a while. And then of course we have the childcare issue. As soon as kids had to go and learn remote, a lot of our workers who had to be at work to work and didn't have the opportunity to work remotely had to choose between making an income or taking care of their family. And of course, we applauded them for making the right decision for them, but we've been suffering in the interim.
I'll come right back to you in a second on another childcare question. We'll talk a lot more about that today. But Sue, how about at Involta? How's business? And that same general question to you.
Yeah, sure. So we're an IT company. I feel like we have fared pretty good through this pandemic. Of course, it is challenging. Mainly that's because our customers don't know their future. So, you know, our whole business is based on customers and what they're doing. So we kind of, you know, we're waiting for them to make the first move here. So my biggest challenge, I feel like, is culture. We had a really great culture, and I still believe we have a great culture. Most everyone came into the office, and now that you're at home, it's really hard to measure what does culture mean when everyone is at home. In my mind, I'm constantly thinking, are the employees safe? Are we good? Are we on track? How do we measure this? You know, so that's kind of what we think about every single day is, how are we doing as a company supporting the other employees, and are we doing a good job at it?
Very good, thanks. As we shift into a childcare question, I want to pause just for a second. Barbara put this in the chat, but I just want to make sure everybody's aware. We have had a couple of more legislators join us, so thank you. You guys had a tremendously busy week, a heavy lift, and to take the time to join us today is just ever so much appreciated. So I do want to note, as Barbara's note in the chat says, now I think we have Senator Mathis and Senator Zumba with us. We have Representatives Ehlert, McClintock, Jurdy, and Stade all with us. So several more have joined. Thank you to all of you for taking the time here this afternoon. I very much appreciate that, and I hope that we provide some great value in the insights of these business leaders for you as well.
And Representative Running Marquardt is also
great. Okay, Kirsten, thank you, Representative Running Marquardt.
And I believe Senator Hogue is, if he's not already, he's trying to join us by phone.
Okay, very good, very good. So we've got almost a full house of our area delegation. Fantastic and much appreciated. Hey, I do want to switch now to childcare challenges as I promised that we would. And I can't acknowledge everybody on the call. We've got, we may be over 100 participants, but I do want to give a quick shout out to Dawn Oliver Wyand, who I know is on the call. I saw her picture earlier. As we talk about these childcare issues and the work of the Iowa Women's Foundation, some of these issues that now seem so ubiquitous, we're all talking about it. There's huge momentum. We understand the issues. We're getting to the solutions. The Iowa Women's Foundation deserves a huge amount of credit for crystallizing those issues and really creating the momentum that's there today. So quick shout out to Dawn and all the great work that she's doing and her board and the coalitions. Anne Marie, you're involved in some of that, and I want to point this question to you. Any parent who has a child in outside care now or has ever in the past certainly knows about the expense of childcare. Many, unfortunately, also know about the lack of available childcare. Both challenges have really been magnified more than ever through COVID. Anne Marie, you've been a big part of the area's approach to tackling the childcare crisis. What has Raining Rose done to try to assist employees? What innovative ideas have come forward in your work on the Child Care Solutions Coalition? And perhaps if this is part of the answer, are there things that state government can do to help? I know I'm throwing a lot at you, but please take it from there.
Well, if I don't answer it all, Doug, just bop in and make sure that I do. I was doing a little homework on this topic just to be well prepared, and I get this little email news report called The Skim. Has anybody ever heard of The Skim? Raise your hand, right? And it's pretty fun and sassy, and it's a good read, and it keeps you well up to date about what's going on in the world. But recently I saw for the first time, actually, the term she session, that we're going into the she session, right? It's like a recession, except it's just for women. And that hits really close to home at Raining Rose. I'm personally a mom. Thankfully, I'm out of childcare years, and thankfully my husband has been able to work from home, so we didn't have to worry about it on the days when we didn't have a school or anything like that. But I also remember the days of having to shell out, being essentially in the red. I was paying for daycare by working full time. And that was a time when I was making very good wages, but it was still a lot to put 3 children through daycare. They say that to have an infant in daycare right now costs you anywhere from $800 to $1,000 a month. One child, an infant in daycare. So if you have multiple children that is going to a center situation, just think about how much that could cost, right? And we felt that at home. We felt it right here at Raining Rose. And thankfully, we've had a lot of support through the Families First Coronavirus Response Act. They had an eFMLA option where it's emergency FMLA that you can stay home and be able to teach your kids and get about 60 or 2/3 your wage to be able to do that. We made that available to everybody with children. Honestly, a lot of our workers that have to be here to work, that are on the production floor, they opted to take an alternative shift to be able to make their full wage, because it was really important that they made their full wage. 60% wasn't going to cut it. And so we really felt that close to home. And I don't know if you've been watching the news lately, but there was recently a woman in Ohio that was arrested because she left her 3 children at home or at a hotel while she ran up the road to work her job at Little Caesars. And this is a mom trying to make ends meet, single mom who is trying to do the best she can. And this is what she had to do, is not abandon, but leave her children so that she can go and work her shift. And then as news got out about this, there was a GoFundMe page from other people who totally understand this situation, where she's raised about $150,000 because it's so close to home for so many of us. So at Raining Rose, we took advantage of everything we could with the government subsidies for being able to pay for people to stay home and take care of their family first. Those actually run out at the end of March. And so we're feeling that crunch now as people are still trying to figure out what to do and they're still not vaccinated. we also are trying to do whatever we can to be flexible. If you are able to work from home and you want to keep your kids out at home, we allow you to do that. We give you as much flexibility to do that. However, 2/3 of our workforce has to come to work. And so we do whatever we can to support those workers, whether it be added flexibility on start and end times, allowing you to, we often have kids that are parents that are on separate shifts, and they basically swap off with the carrier in our lobby, which it's painful to watch, but we give them as much grace as they need to make ends work and be as productive as possible. People are wanting to work, but they're not able to. And if you read the article in CBJ lately, they had one this last week about the pandemic's economic effect on women. And we take a really close look at that at Rainy Rose, although it seemed to be hit in both parents, but also from an economic standpoint in our entire state. We have the lowest workforce participation rate that we've had in decades. And that has a spiral effect. If we have less people working, we have less money that's being made and less money that's then going back into the economy. And it's not a switch that can be flipped on, although it looks like due to the pandemic and even the derecho, it's been a switch that is turned back off. So we're really struggling to have available workers for when the economy starts back up and being able to support the workers that want to stay here.
Thanks. I want to ask basically the same question to Aaron and to Sue. Aaron, the moms and dads at NewBoCo, what are you hearing about childcare, including yourself?
Yeah, I would echo a lot of what Erin Marie said. Truly flexibility is key for us, and just offering that flexibility to our employees. I mean, our employees know that they have the flexibility to get the work done in a schedule that works for their family. So like in my example, my wife is a nurse. She cannot work from home. She has to go to the hospital. And so I'm the one responsible for getting all the kids to and from school, which means I block off my calendar for external meetings, but internally people know they can call me if they need something. And, honestly, just also keeping in mind that just because someone has kids doesn't mean that their childcare needs are the same. I have teenagers and toddlers, and my childcare issues are much different than some of my coworkers that have new babies. So, that flexibility and understanding is key. I think at NewBoCo, nobody bats an eye if somebody has to reschedule a meeting because of a childcare change, or if they've got a kid on their lap during a Zoom call. That's been normalized at this point. And so I think that as employers, I think that's super important for us to not make our employees feel guilty if they have to do something that is quote unquote outside the norm. I think this mentality of you got to show up at 7:59 a.m. and you don't leave until 5:01 p.m. or after, like that's got to be gone. And I know that can be hard for some of us who might have been brought up in that mode to change, but we have to have that flexibility, and we have to model it for our employees that it really is okay.
Thanks. And Sue?
Yeah, so I'll echo. So it's tricky, right? We fortunately are able to flip the switch and brought everybody home, except for a few individuals that are required to be in our data centers. It's a very small population. So with that said, we are able to offer a flexibility that if you need to take a couple hours in the morning, take a couple hours in the afternoon, work a couple hours in the night, whatever you need to do in order to make it up. So unfortunately and fortunately, it has not been a super pain point for Involta.
Thank you.
But yeah, go ahead.
Guys, thanks for the discussion on that. We didn't touch too much on it, but just quickly, certainly we're supportive of a number of bills that are working their way through the legislature, particularly some bills that have passed the House already and are looking for action in the Senate. I think would be very helpful. A lot of these things supported by the people and the organizations part of this call. So certainly with our legislative advocacy hats on, we're going to continue to work hard on those and hope that this session can be deemed a success and we can check some boxes as it relates to this child care issue. I want to change gears, and Kim, I'll bring you into the conversation for this, really thinking about the skilled worker shortage Workforce challenges remain a top concern of our member businesses. And by the way, that's almost counterintuitive to some people. If you're not really tuned into these issues, we know that there's been industries that have been devastated. Unemployment was very high for a while. Now it's back down. These workforce challenges have changed very little. A year ago, before we knew any of this, we had a severe crisis in terms of skilled workers, workforce in general, slow population growth. We need more people to grow our businesses. And while a lot of things have changed related to the economy, to community development, to economic development, the workforce issues are still very much the same as they have been. And we want to try to keep that front and center as a challenge and as an opportunity. We have an opportunity to address the core issues facing workforce and to adjust policies to meet future demand. Part of our advocacy has been for an education and training system that aligns with the needs of the business community. Certainly Future Ready Iowa has had broad bipartisan support. It's something that a lot of people agree with from a policy perspective, and was signed into law a few years ago. That's been helping close the gap. And I want to talk a little bit about that and some of the programs within it. So Kim, just on the broad level, I know this is a pretty learned panel and a pretty learned audience we have here today, but briefly explain to the audience, just to make sure, what Future Ready Iowa is, and particularly how Kirkwood plays a role in the goals of Future Ready Iowa.
Sure, Doug, happy to. So Future Ready Iowa is an initiative of the state, and its basis is really to help our workforce ensure that they gain credentials beyond the high school diploma to ensure our middle skills jobs can be filled, right? And a middle skilled job is defined by Iowa Workforce Development is a job in high demand at $14 or more per hour in the vocational CTE, career and technical education areas of the region and the state. The state is really focusing Future Ready Iowa around several primary efforts. So one is post-secondary credentials, right? So the Last Dollar Scholarship Program is a premier program of Future Ready Iowa, which assists individuals to receive credentials. Kirkwood participates in that. I will say we allocate those funds quickly and certainly have students on the waiting list to be able to access the Last Dollar Scholar, which can provide tuition benefits. And then the educational systems, particularly the community colleges, provide wraparound supports, mentoring, and coaching to the Last Dollar Scholarship students that we are sure they are going to be successful with the programs that they are going into. Also, registered apprenticeships is a big area of emphasis for the state. The Employer Innovation Fund is an area that will also support registered apprenticeships. That's on-the-job training, earn and learn programs, which we are seeing definitely as a new method, not really new, but an additional method in a tight workforce environment. That is an additional way to recruit and retain employees differently than what is currently being done. And believe that in the future, that's going to become even more important to be able to hire individuals, because we have an equity gap where people are employed, but they can't afford to stop working to go to college. And they can't afford to stop working to take a short-term training program. So they got to figure out a way to do it both, and employer investment would be huge with that. The other prong that Iowa Workforce Development has focused on is employer investment in credentialing of employees, and they have certain grant programs available to support employers to do that. So certainly at Kirkwood, we are helping our students access these programs and then helping them to be successful. And we are working to support businesses so that they can access these resources to help with their workforce demands. Another component, particularly from Kirkwood, is that we engage with our businesses, and we want businesses to engage with us, to advise us on the programs we're offering, both short and longer term, to ensure they're meeting the regional workforce needs. And then we can make adjustments and help with that workforce pipeline. We have a variety of partnerships, sector boards, which help us in raising awareness around certain occupations in the region for us to be able to increase our enrollments in programs. But educational institutions will be better able to increase their enrollments and grow your pipeline with the support of industries saying that they endorse or support certain majors and credentials to get hired at employer communities. So that's kind of my soapbox a little bit on that. But those are the variety of resources that Future Ready Iowa is procuring.
Oh. Kim, well, thank you for that answer. And first of all, I see Senator Hogue has joined us. Now 8 legislators on the call. Again, thank you for taking time on a Friday afternoon after a long week to do that. 8 members of our local delegation is really the vast majority. That's almost all of them. Just a tremendous turnout. So thank you. So Kim talked a little bit about Future Ready Iowa. I want to delve a little bit more into one particular component of that called the Employer Innovation Fund. It's a program that's already made some grant awards. The state has set this up to really help companies open opportunities for more Iowans to get training, to earn certifications, those kind of things. About 19 area companies have gotten about $1.1 million so far, and it's going to be an ongoing process where additional things can get funded. We've talked a lot about this at the Economic Alliance. I want more employers to become aware of the opportunity, and maybe by hearing the success of some companies, a light bulb goes on and says, oh, I get it now. Maybe we can design something at our own company. So there was a little bit of a method to our madness in selecting the panel today, because a couple of our panelists have been successful grant recipients. And I want to give them an opportunity today to talk a little bit about their program, about the Employer Innovation Fund and their experience with it, and hope that others on the call might start actively thinking about how they might benefit from the program as well. So, Sue, I want to start with you. Tell us about Involta's experience with the Employer Innovation Fund. How did you learn about it? How was the application process? And tell us a little bit about what you're using that funding for.
Sure. So I'm going to tag team with Aaron on this because I could not have done it without him. So how this all took place is Eric and Aaron and I had a strategy meeting talking about, hey, we need more workers here besides just code. So what do you think about expanding Code School into being something with network, systems, and security? So we were brainstorming this and we were trying to put together, how do we pay for it? How do we get an instructor, etc. And so then this program, the EIF came out and Aaron's like, hey, this is how we're going to do this. Let's apply for this and let's get some dollars in. Let's find an instructor and let's get some students. So that's exactly what we did. Aaron came up with a program. We sent him across the street and said, you go create the program, we'll get the dollars. So anyways, we were able to sponsor 7 students through the program. Involta has currently hired 3 of them, and we have offers out to 2 more. So within just a very short time frame, we have 5 new employees on board, and they are amazing. And the application process, simple. We partnered with NewBoCo, wrote that together, submitted it, and next thing you know, we were approved and dollars were being spent on training students. Amazing program.
Yeah. Great to hear that success too, and very tangible, very real, right? There's people there today that you may not have had trained otherwise. So fantastic. Aaron Horn, you want to just expound upon that and kind of NewBoCo's role in that? And I think you guys have another application pending now as well. So you're seeing value out of the fund, and we'll try to keep having some success and bringing some funding back here.
Yeah, for sure. We're a huge fan of Future Ready Iowa. It's right in line with our passion for helping Iowa companies hire quality tech talent. which is why we started Delta V Code School back in 2017, and why we're, our long game is that we're pushing to get computer science curriculum into every school across Iowa. And so we've used employer innovation funds to actually help students who are underrepresented in tech be able to go through our training programs at no cost, along with providing their books and a laptop. So in addition to what Involta and CCR and actually Project Iowa in Des Moines did, as far as sending some of their students through, we were able to beef up our diversity tuition awards and allow for folks, again, that are underrepresented in tech that otherwise wouldn't be able to afford to go through the program, access to the program. And we also created registered apprenticeships for software development and digital marketing development, which are probably areas most people don't think of when they think of apprentices, but those have been really successful. And we're pretty niche because we're looking at adult career changers that want to get into an IT field as quickly as possible. So we're getting software developers into those careers in 20 weeks. We're getting help desk folks into those careers in 5 weeks, and they're all getting jobs, which is the important part. And in fact, with our new help desk curriculum, all of our students are getting job offers, most of them getting it before the classes were even done. Thank you, Involta. And then, other local employers like CCR as well, Heidi's on the call, they're using these funds to hire folks and then send them our way for the technical training that they need to be successful. And, these aren't necessarily huge numbers. Our cohort sizes are still really small, like 6 to 12 students at any given time. But this is something that's in demand in Iowa at any given time. There's over 200 open software developer jobs. And honestly, Lynn County is the second highest, by the way. So Polk County is number 1 and Lynn County is right behind it. And it's the same statistic for help desk jobs. So, this is a big need, and we're just happy that we're able to kind of help fill that as quickly as possible.
Kim, I've got kind of a two-part question for you. First of all, I'm curious how Kirkwood has used the Employer Innovation Fund. And then since you very likely know more about this issue than anybody else on here today, I want you to maybe get back on that soapbox again. What more should employers know or do to upskill their employees? How can we as employers help you as Kirkwood do the work that you do?
Right. Great. Thanks again, Doug. So yeah, Kirkwood has utilized the Employer Innovation Funds in really several different ways. The first is the Employer Innovation Funds also allow us to apply for funds. And we've done that to get matching funds to support students with their social wraparound supports when they are pursuing the high demand jobs that Future Ready Iowa supports. So that's one way that we have used it. The second way that we have used it is that we've brought a consortium of employers together with similar related training instruction needs in a credentialing area. And we're able to help submit the application, get the matching funds, and provide services to those employers. And the third area is that we have gotten called in after the fact. So employers have submitted to the Employer Innovation Fund and then have called us to say, hey, we got this. Now we need your help to put together the training. And we are, happy to do that. And that particularly had occurred in the healthcare arena. There were several awards that wrapped their way back around to Kirkwood to help them develop that education and training. So for employers to access the fund, accessing that grant isn't particularly difficult. I think sometimes it's a question of, well, what is meant exactly by education and training and getting a credential? And will I meet the requirements? And what's this matching business? And why do I have to show I have this money in reserve already when I submit the grant application? So really for employers, it's I just encourage you to think about where you currently have bottlenecks in hiring based on skill and skill credentials needed, but also where do you have challenges along your career ladder? So I'll use Aaron as an example. You hire in, you have help desk positions, but you have an additional tier of certifications, possibly in your cybersecurity area. You could apply to help train those employees up to that next credential. That's an example of what you could do. And then it's partnering with the training provider that's able to provide that credentialed training for your workforce. I think there's a possibility employers could use this in their tuition reimbursement programs. To build that out even more, what you'd have to watch is that you're investing in an employee to get a credential, not just to take a course, but it would be to finish their degree. It would be to finish their diploma, or to get a credential in software security certification. So really lots of opportunities. And I will just say we have helped employers. We have a grant writer, and we did help a couple employers to apply, and a couple used us for their training. And so we're happy to also help with those resources as well. And that fund is just going to become more important as our companies steer their way to automation and digitization. In this next, we're in it now in terms of particularly for our manufacturers, this can be a great funding resource.
Kim, thank you. I want to note too, Representative Molly Donahue was able to join us after she finished her work day. So we're up to 9 legislators now. Legislators, you gotta rib the very few legislators who aren't on here now that we have such great participation. Again, thank you. I have a legislator direct messaging me, making me laugh too. So you guys are clearly tuned in and paying attention. Thank you for that. We've got about just over 15 minutes left. Here's what we're going to do in the remaining time, just so that you can be ready. I have one last question for the panelists. I want to try to encourage them to give some more advice related to applying to Employer Innovation Fund. Then we're going to open to any legislator comments. Not all 9 of you have to talk. We're going to be pretty limited in your time, but I do want to open this up to you to answer any questions that may have been raised, to make any points, to give any feedback that might be on your mind after hearing from the business community today on these issues. And then if we've got time, and I'd encourage you to put a couple of questions in the chat box. I don't think that we'll get to many, but if you've got a couple of questions from anybody in the audience, please add those to the chat box. And if we've got a couple minutes left at the end, I'll get to as many as we can. So that's our last 16 minutes here. So for the panelists, a couple of questions, and just answer what part of this you want. But I want to try to continue to encourage people to go after this funding and to recognize that there's support for training. So any tips to share on those grant applications? How innovative do you have to be? Maybe some of these programs sound intimidating, or they sound like they may not match for other companies. But are there some things that would break down barriers and you would encourage them to apply? And then if there's anything about the program, keep in mind we have 9 legislators listening right now. If there's anything about the program that we want to encourage the legislature to be in tune with, would you have any advice along those lines? So real quick run through all 4 of you. Let me start with Aaron Horn.
Yeah, great. I'll start with the last question first, I guess, as far as in regards to anything to be changed. You know, our biggest message has been that non-accredited programs like ours should qualify for last dollar scholarships. So we were really excited to see that be part of the latest Economic Recovery Advisory Board's recommendations to the governor's office. We are non-accredited by design. If someone's looking for credentials, absolutely, I'm pointing them to Kirkwood or local community colleges to get that for sure. But giving folks options for what works best for their path into these high demand fields is definitely critical, because obviously, further education is certainly not one size fits all. But to the first part of that question, yes, apply. Future Ready Iowa gets super excited about businesses that are applying for funding to hire and train new employees. And even though these awards can go up to $50,000 with matching, they love awarding companies with just enough money to hire even one new employee in a higher demand career field. So if you're going to spend $10,000 or $20,000 for training and equipment of a new employee, it's a great opportunity to ask the state to help cover half of that. And Future Ready Iowa clearly sees skills gaps in high demand careers. So if you can show that you're going to help solve that problem quickly, they're going to be excited about it. And it certainly helps to have, someone like you, Doug, at the Metro Economic Alliance, write you letters of support that what you're doing for workforce development as well. So thank you for that.
Yeah, you bet. And that certainly that offer applies to everybody. We can be a support letter machine over here. We want to support any of those grant applications. Anne Marie, thoughts on that same series of questions?
I think the biggest highlight is that we do it for a variety of different occupations. Oftentimes we think of what's the latest and greatest, how we're developing and evolving, and even this pandemic has taken us to a whole new level of need. And that we also remember the ones that that are a little bit more hands-on, that are going to be more industrial, that it may be more technical, but outside. And so having a good breadth and depth of all the things that can be trained on and unique ways to do it so it partners with the employer is going to be a powerful thing for our economy.
No, thank you. Sue, anything to add?
Yes, first and foremost, thank you for the money. Keep it coming. I can't tell you how easy the process is and how great it is we actually did the reverse. We trained and then hired. So it worked out really well for us. We're 5 people that I didn't have to go out and spend a lot of time recruiting. Here in the corridor, everybody's switching employees from company to company in the IT field. So the majority of our customers are the people that we're stealing from, and we're not a fan of doing that. So this program allowed people that necessarily aren't employed by our customers to participate. So it worked out great.
No, thank you. Kim, any final words?
One suggestion I would have for the grant program, because later rounds of the Employer Innovation Funds is going to open up, but nobody knows what those dates are. And I think for businesses, for planning, it would be nice if the state could say, we're going to do 3 rounds and here are the dates. So if I'm not ready on the first round, I can begin planning for the second round. And I believe there's enough funding allocated to the program that could work out. Another idea is I wonder about being more targeted with the Employer Innovation Funds and looking at industry sectors to ensure each industry sector has an opportunity to compete. So you might look at the funding by sector to also help develop workforce strategies within a sector that can also be mirrored across the employer group as well, just as some suggestions. And I agree, for employers, and if they're looking for ideas, economic development organizations, IWD, Kirkwood can certainly, NUBOCO, can certainly help with that advice and guidance for some ideas as to how to make it work for what the company wants to do.
Very good. Kim, when you started talking about more targeted, I thought we were going to just go for it here today and say, could you just target the Kirkwood region with this money? And now let's, no, you were much more diplomatic than that. Good job. So. With 9 legislators on, I'm not sure exactly how to manage this. I'm going to start out by trying to just open this up and see if anybody has thoughts. I just ask you to chime in. If we've got people talking over one another, maybe we can kind of get in line in the chat room. Again, I don't want to compel all 9 of you to have to chime in, but some of you have been particularly engaged and involved in these conversations. And again, you took the time to tune in and to be with us this afternoon. I certainly want to give you at least a couple of minutes here to react, to share any thoughts that you might have.
Well, since you kind of called me out a minute ago, Doug, since I private messaged you. Anyway, I'll be brief and then I'll let the others get to theirs. Particularly when you noted the child care issues and things like that. If you don't know, there's a lot of different places that report it differently, but about 2/3 of households with kids have parents that are employed. And it's been reported in a couple of different newspapers, but depending on what you read and how you interpret it, about 1 out of 3 states will tell you that the cost of, depending on the state, but the cost of the care for an infant is about the same as tuition and fees for a 4-year college. So it's not a small amount of money we're talking about. It can have a serious impact on the parents and the costs that they put out and what they have to budget for. And many homes require that both parents work. So the other thing is, if I see my wife just pulled in, so I hope I don't start barking too loud here. If anything else that 2020 taught us is that parents can't count on public schools also for being to help them augment their childcare for kindergarten through about 8th grade, and then other kids coming home that can be home unattended. So it can be a real burden, and we need to be doing everything we can as legislators, representatives, senators to assist with that. I also noted that to kind of offset some of those things. Just a second. Sorry about that. With universal health care and things like that, there's some things that we can do through trying to improve the situation. And if you look at things like universal child care, or trying to offset some of that inequality in the workforce, or trying to improve the economic situation, certainly what you guys are trying to do with the Future Ready Iowa fits in with that. And you noted that that last dollar scholarship and some of that child care challenge and the employer fund that you guys are trying to do, that all fits in. So I want to make sure that all of you know that that message was heard loud and clear, and that we'll try to do everything that we can in the legislature to try to support that. So I apologize about those dogs.
No.
Every time, I mean, without fail, every time I try to get on a Zoom, something will happen to do that. So
Representative McClintock, thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that.
I'll go get a handle on those and pass it off to the next one. Thank you.
This is Representative Tracy Ellert, and I'm going to piggyback on the childcare conversation, since I do own a childcare and I'm an early childhood educator. I've been advocating for childcare long before I ever became a legislator, and you guys know that's my passion area. I have quite a few bills out there that most likely probably will not make it through final week, but do address a lot of the challenges and go even further than what has already passed through the House. If you follow those bills closely enough, we did address childcare, but not strong enough. And some of those bills we passed were just to be in compliance with federal regulations. So still quite a bit more work to be done. I continue to join the Lynn County Child Care Solution meetings when I have a chance. I'm the chair of the Early Childhood Workforce Advisory Committee for Iowa AYC, and I'm joining all the other committee calls as I can. There's quite a few going on, so that I'm continuously involved in those conversations. And Doug and Barbara, you guys know you can reach out to me whenever if you have any questions about anything going on, and we'll continue to work on childcare.
Tracy, you've been fantastic on these issues. Thanks so much. And for your involvement, even during the session, actually quite a few members of those committees and those coalitions on the call today. So I appreciate all the expertise that all of you bring to this. So a couple more minutes. Anybody else want to chime in?
This is Representative Art Stade. I wanted to thank all of you for being on here. Your participation and your ideas and suggestions to us are key. And it's good to know that we are on the same, we're all working on some of the same issues, and we were doing everything we can to support you at the State House. So thank you.
Thanks very much. So Barbara did just put all of the email addresses in the chat as well. Legislators are certainly open to your comments, your input, your feedback, your exchanges with them, and we'd encourage you to do that. Senator Mathis, I see you just went off mute. Do you want the last word here today?
No, sure, why not? I think Kim Betchika brought up a great point about Future Ready Iowa. All of the legislators on this call have supported Future Ready Iowa. It's a great program. We can always make it better. And when you talk about sectors, at first, when Future Ready Iowa was developed, we really didn't emphasize the healthcare workforce as much as we should have. And look where we are now. We really needed the healthcare workforce more than ever over this last year. So as Future Ready developed, more attention was focused on healthcare workforce as an integral part of our economic development in the state. And so I'm glad to see that that has moved toward that a little bit more. We could do a lot better with that. And that's one of the improvements that we could make. We filed a bill in the House, or in the Senate, excuse me, on FMLA, so family medical leave. And it's a creative, innovative bill. If you want to take a look at it, it's most of the senators signed on to it, Democratic senators signed on to it. And like Tracy was saying too, in regards to childcare, we've only passed one bill in the Senate. It's a House file, and we have we have 4 bills that are just sitting there. They don't need to make funnel week because they're a House file, but we need to keep working on it and keep perfecting what childcare should look like, registered childcare should look like in the state of Iowa. So those are my comments. There is a bill that I want you all to take a look at, and it will affect economic development in the state. It's Senate File 402, and it's about censuring some of the some of the platforms, the platforms like Facebook and even Microsoft to that point. So take a look at it, see what you think about it. I'm not in favor of it. It's going to go like a railroad train through the Senate this week. So if you have any issues with it, call Doug. He'll know all about it, and he can answer your questions.
Okay, legislators, again, thank you for all of those comments, particularly on these workforce issues, and the childcare issues. We're going to continue to be very strong advocates and welcome you to join our voices. You hang on for just a minute or two. I want to turn this back over to Nick for some closing comments, and I want to do one last thank you to the panelists today, Kim, Erin Marie, Sue, and Aaron. Thank you very much for all of those insights, for being so well prepared for this and really giving us some great information today. And with that, I want to turn this over to my friend Nick Glue.
All right. Thank you, Doug. And thanks again, everybody. A great discussion today. Thank you to our panelists, all of our legislators here, 4 o'clock on a Friday. Thanks to all of you for joining us. I think, as you all know, workforce is an issue that covers a lot, and we've just barely scratched the surface. These conversations are ongoing. These solutions are ongoing, and that's why all of our organizations really value the partnerships that we have with all of our elective leaders. So thank you for your service, especially kind of in this challenging year that we've had. So we're going to do this again 1 month from today. It's March 26th from 3 to 4 o'clock. Watch for registration information coming soon. The topic, interestingly enough, is to be determined. We've heard a couple of our representatives talk about funnel week. That's coming up next week. A month from now, we're not really sure what's going to still be in play in the legislature at the end of March. So we want to be a little bit flexible on talking about really the most relevant and most urgent topics once that date comes. If any of you have ideas that you would like us to dive into, send any of us a note. We'd love to hear your input as far as what you're interested in, and hopefully that can maybe influence the topic that we come up with here in the next few weeks. So thanks again to our legislators, our panelists, and all of my partners across the Metro, and thank all of you for joining us today. Have a great weekend. I think let's officially start the weekend now, and have a great one, everyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Doug, Kim, everyone. Goodbye.